All right, man. Hey, look, I know these aren't fun, so we can just sort of get right after it, and we can skip all the normal niceties. Um, today wasn't a good one, right? I was hoping we'd see some more fight in the second half. Before we get into, what are some things that you saw that maybe you could like? Can you talk? Really, I really want to start with Hudson. I feel like he had another solid day today. 12 points, 5 rebounds, had a couple turnovers, but I think you're going to have that. Can you talk about him playing in this tournament thus far and what you've seen?
I mean, Hudson has been great. All the way through since July. Me and you have talked previously, but Hudson's the guy that brings it every day. From an energy standpoint, a lot of things I know Max said it out in public about forcing and trying to get guys to give effort and energy. I think Hudson brings every day, and obviously you can see in his play the last 2 days has been big time, and hopefully he can continue to build off that.
Yeah. So yesterday, the story, I think the thing that I kept seeing and hearing was the rebounding, right? You got beat pretty badly on the boards. Today it was pretty clear. You came out. That was obviously a point of conversation with the team. You came out, especially in the first half, felt like you guys held your own. We had the rebounding lead, at the end of the first half. That's something that has to continue. Is that a mentality thing you think for this team, or are
You
there
know
things
what?
you can work on?
It's definitely a mentality, and our intensity. We talked about matching intensity going into the Baylor game. We knew those guys were going to crash the glass. So I think from our standpoint now is getting guys to buy in to that. Mac just said to our group, like we're done asking guys to do things that just come with playing hard, and that's we're going to find a group of guys that are about the same things we're about, and move on from there. But I think our intensity, we have to match intensity and boxing out. I mean, even today, we gave up multiple during the stretch where we were kind of trying to make a run, gave up offensive rebounds down the stretch that, is just kind of inexcusable in this high level game.
Yeah. And I think one of the things about making runs is it does take a lot of emotion to mentally lock in for that and make a run. And then it's even harder when you get punched back
Right.
to say, okay, now we got to go another, if you think about it in a boxing, analogy, if it's like, hey, we won that round. Okay, now we come out, we got punched. Like, can we still fight and win another round?
Right.
It seems like there's certain guys on the team. Again, I'm watching on TV, but it seems like there's certain guys on the team, that Hudson being one of them, that you can kind of rely on, that's going to keep swinging. And then there's other ones that you're kind of noticing even some body language that's changing. Can you talk about that not from a coach's perspective? Can you talk about that as a player? How can you keep your mentality right when you're taking lumps and and still working towards the end goal?
I think the biggest thing we just talked about, we got to start fighting for the name in the front of our jersey. Um, our culture, our brand that we've created through Coach Altman, through Coach McDermott. Um, we got to have guys that care about that. And I think we have a lot of new faces that aren't used to what we're challenging them on. I think we have a culture that demands winning and demands discipline, and we're trying to get a lot of guys to buy into that. Um, who've come from different situations, whether that be, overseas or whether that be from a previous school where we feel like now the expectation is more. And like we talked about, I think I talked to you about the Gonzaga game. I feel like after that second half in that game, we kind of laid down, and that's not the mentality. We through the years have multiple games when we've gotten down and climbed our way back into games. So we just got to get more buy-in, and hopefully, we've had what 4 straight years of bad Vegas trips. So we've been here, and we just got to get a group of guys that are bought into doing the things we want to do the right way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think too is like, you can always look back and look at some of these previous teams that have taken some lumps. I mean, unfortunately, I was a part of some of them where those Vegas trips
A
were
couple of
hard.
years ago.
Yeah, and they're
Vegas.
difficult, right?
Yeah.
You guys kind of get that emotional gut punch with Jackson right before you come out there, and then now you lose a couple of games, and now, if I'm correct, you'll be there all day tomorrow and then play on Thanksgiving, and
It's looking that way.
It's not where you want to be mentally. Obviously, the game bears that as well, but mentally, it's going to be tough. And before you came on, I was talking to nobody because I had a problem with the microphone, or I guess the problem wasn't the mic, the problem was me. I didn't have it on. And I was telling the people or nobody that I talked to Baylor right after the game. And I want to get your perspective on this because obviously we both know and love Baylor. And he said, in his opinion, the most important thing right now is that the team stays together and doesn't fracture and go in their different ways. Of these couple of guys are boys, so they'll hang out together and talk about this guy that's turning the ball over, this guy that can't hit shots right now. Like, how do you as a coach and as a mentor to these guys help them understand, like, the worst? I mean, we all want to talk about our feelings. We all want to get things off our chest, but that's in some ways the worst thing you can do if you're behind each other's backs. And, can you talk about how you prevent some of that stuff now?
Well, I think with our group, I think we have a group of great kids. And you got to lean on, you've recruited and brought good kids around the program. Now the shell, to your point, can't fracture. And I think for me personally, I just feel like taking these guys to the side right now and explaining, like, we've been here before. And the veterans have to be part of it too. We've been in this position before, and we're not going to do it alone. Coach Mack just had a great speech addressing some of those things you just talked about. So I think as a whole, as a unit, we all got to stay connected. And we can't hang as coaches and put the bad mojo out there and bad energy. I think we got to be overly positive right now, and try to get the best version of our team. And I don't think we've seen that here yet. So hopefully we can get to that best version of our team, and that's a lot of the things where us figuring out rotation. And that's a big part of it. So I think we're starting to figure out some of those things, and hopefully, we'll have another opportunity here Thursday to kind of get to where we need to go going to this next stretch.
Does NIL make it hard to change rotations when you think you might need to?
I don't think Matt cares. I honestly don't. I think that he has proven to some guys that probably made more NIL to the others, or like he's sending a message to everyone. And I think that's the best thing about Mac. I don't think he's going to play that game or even willing to play that game. And that's not what we're about.
Good.
I think that obviously it's a factor in building a roster, but I think when it comes to rotations and depth chart and how we're playing right now, we just got to get guys that are bought into us.
Yeah. Well, I assume that would be your answer. I mean, obviously knowing Mac like we both do, he just wants to win. But I also think it's hard when you have, you just the landscape is different.
Yeah.
And you deal with, and not a lot of people probably know all this, but you deal with every day. You're dealing with parents, you're dealing with agents, and the actual players themselves that are all going to have something to say. They're all going to have something, some axe to grind. And so I'm sure it is tough. So I wish you the best with that. But as we get into, to just talk just for a second about the actual game here, defensively, we know Iowa State is suffocating. They want to take whatever it is that you do well and stop you from doing it. One of the things in order for them to do that is their ball pressure. They really take you out of any ball screen actions. And then I talked about it at halftime, but one of the things they do too is when the ball's loaded on one side, they really overhelp and really load their defense that way, which leads to stagnation because guys almost feel that they're open, and so they don't cut, they don't move like normal. The second half, you guys came out. The first couple of possessions, I felt like you guys were cutting harder. You were moving without the basketball. Can you talk about what does Iowa State do that is so frustrating as an offensive player? And we're going to play teams that play hard like that, St. John's, UConn. How do we take what we saw today and apply that in future matchups?
I think reps. It was a quick turnaround, so we didn't get to practice or review the way we wanted to going into the game. We actually took Friday, and we worked on Iowa State and prepared Saturday and Sunday for Baylor. So, we got a new group. Like I said, the expectations from even a preparation standpoint, I don't think we have the guys that are used to how we do things, the attention to detail, trying to take teams out of certain things. I think our prep over the last 24 hours, we showed them different ways to get two to the ball. We knew that they would commit two guys to the ball a lot, and how we can get in rotations and get the dominoes falling. And I think we did that in the first half, honestly, but we have to be able to execute, and guys have to be able to read where the play is at. And that's the biggest thing, our execution. And it's just no carryover right now, because I think early in the first half we got some of the looks we wanted, but it was, we instead of skipping it, we went into two defenders, so we have to be able to share the ball and get the dominoes falling. That's been a big part of Creighton basketball over the years.
Yeah. The one that stands out to me, man, is Hudson turning down the wide open three on the wing.
Yeah.
And driving it into the heart of the defense. And that's a youth thing. I mean, I think I honestly just
down shots right now. Hudson turned down that one, and we were really mad at him about that one. But, he's a freshman. It's to be expected. We got some older guys that are doing the same thing. And, we talk about 0.5 mentality when you catch the ball, which you got to make a decision. Are you ripping? Are you going? And the ball gets stagnant. Right. This is a team that the ball can't get stagnant against. That's what they're hoping for.
Yeah. But I think what's obvious watching that kid play is, holy cow, is he going to be a stud?
Oh, yeah. He's going to be very good, man. He's going to be very good sooner than later.
Yeah. Look, I know these are never fun, man. It's never fun to do these interviews right after a loss. So I appreciate your time jumping on. Let's change the mojo as a last question before you jump off. I'm a positive guy by nature. Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys will do something on Friday when you get home. Maybe you'll go out to eat tomorrow or something in Vegas. But what's the one part of the Thanksgiving meal that you have to have? If everything else was out, but you got to have this one part of it. What is it for you?
Good question. Probably dressing.
So you call it dressing? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. That's stuffing. I mean, I think it's actually the technical term for it. So, and people that call it dressing we regard those people as we call them weird. But we got comments already. Stuffing. You mean stuffing. So yeah, it's stuffing, but that's okay. We get it. We understand. Plus you just had a game. You got a lot going on.
Yeah. My head's all over the place, but man, I'm not even thinking about how we can get a win and get out of here.
I know. I'm just trying to change the mojo, Trey. I mean, I know. And you're an absolute pro. You're doing great. Hey, do us all a favor from the fans. Give Mac a hug and tell him happy birthday for us. I know it wasn't the birthday he was hoping for, but yeah, we still love him. And hey, happy Thanksgiving to you and the family. We'll see you when you get back.
And the family, man. Tell everybody I said hello.
Yeah, well, the girls just got home from school, so I'm gonna go tell them Trey says hello.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, see you, brother.
See you.
All right. Well, we thank Trey for hopping on. Look, he wanted to hang with us, but he's obviously got to get on the bus and get out of there. But I think there's some good stuff that you can glean from that. Obviously it's tough, man. When you lose, whenever you lose, whether it's by 1 or by 30, it's tough. I've been on the other side of taking the phone, taking the interview and stuff, and trying to get your thoughts around what you just saw. And because a lot of what you just saw is not what you've seen from your team, because in practice, you look sharp and you look ready to go, and then you get out there on the court and it all looks very different. So we appreciate Trey and all the coaches that join us. My thoughts is kind of close up here. I think this team has shown in spurts that we have talent, that we can play with good teams. To me, it's about how do you maintain excellence? How do you put together an entire 40 minutes of really solid basketball that it's going to take to beat really good teams? You're seeing in the Big East, you're seeing the Seton Halls of the world, the DePauls, the Butlers they're not what they've been in the past. And so which is great. It's really good for the league. But what it also means is that you're going to have to play some of these teams for 40 minutes. You're not going to be able to roll the balls out, play a hard 20, and then get a big enough, lead and coast. There's not going to be any nights anymore in this league where you can almost, and you never mail it in, but where you just don't have to play as hard as it takes to beat a St. John's or it takes to beat a UConn. And I think for this team, they have to understand, like, you got to hook it up for that 40 minutes. You've got to be able to do the things that Mac and the staff are teaching and coaching in the practices. You can't turn the ball over 17 times and expect to beat a good team. It'll never happen. Tonight's game or today's game, Iowa State took 7 more shots than we did. Last night it was, I think, 15 more shots than we did. Against Gonzaga, it was in the teens. Like, those little things, that you think on the stat sheet, like, you kind of gloss over. Those are huge, huge things. When you're not getting the same amount of attempts to score and you look and you got 60 points on the board, that's how those things happen. And the way that you combat that is you got to take care of the basketball. You have to pass and cut with pace. Some of the turnovers tonight were just careless. I talked about the inbounds ones at halftime, the one where Josh got ripped at basically half court. Some of the passing, just, one-handed passing, not passing and catching with 2 hands is something that Mac, talks about almost every practice. You got to pass and catch with 2. Those are things that can get cleaned up. When I look at this team and I, really, really look at it and say, like, what am I worried about? I'm worried about the 5-man, and Jacob just asked a question. What do you think of Owen's minutes today? Jacob thinks that he looked a little bit better and more comfortable. I think that's fair in certain spots. Here's the thing, and this is just the honest part about this deal, is this is a different era in college basketball, and you're putting a lot of money into your roster so that you can compete. And what I keep thinking and saying is, this is a guy who's doing quite well for himself now in basketball, and happy for him. But when it comes down to production on the court, you've got to play well. You've got to score. You've got to be like, we brought him in to be Batman, right? And he's honestly not even a Robin right now. And that to me it's a real problem. And I've talked about it in other shows with Jimmy. I'm really curious to see who's going to be the leader of this team. And the more I watch today, the more I'm convinced that it's got to be Josh Dix. And early on, I think we all kind of were like, that's interesting to see, Nick Graves and him playing. Nick's struggling right now. There's no doubt about that. But what I'm seeing from Josh had 15 tonight, 6 assists. He had 4 turnovers, but again, that could be cleaned up. I'm probably more convinced than I have been that Josh has to be the leader. Now, can he do it? I don't know. His human nature is not to be a vocal leader. He's more of a lead by example guy. But I think the staff has to find a way to get Josh to be more of a leader. If that's the case, then I think what you could see is Owen finding his way a little bit easier, because if you really look at it, Owen was brought in to replace a Ryan Kalkbrenner. Ryan Kalkbrenner was a foundation of this team and program for years and years and years. He wasn't the most vocal leader either, but by just the nature of how things worked out, he was the leader of the team. And so you're filling not only his play on the court, but also his leadership. And I don't think that Owen is the guy that can do that. And that's not a knock on him. He's just a very different player, a very different person. And so I wonder if Josh can find his footing as a leader, if that would also help, Owen, because I just see a guy that feels a lot of pressure, a guy that was hurt and is trying to kind of figure things out. He's trying to get his timing back, which I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. It takes time to come back and figure things out. And when you can combine that with the expectations that are on this team, it's hard to do it. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but at the same time, I do think he will be better suited to be in, the second guy instead of, who's going to be the main guy. And I think if that role is clearly defined by them, it can't be from the staff, by them, I do think you can see an improvement in Owen's play. And so I'm hopeful, man, because he's a talented player. But right now, in my opinion, we're better playing small with Jason, which also clears the floor more for Hudson, as well as, honestly, the guy that I would bang the table for a little bit more is Kerem Conan. And Kerem is clearly going to have to work through some things. But the problem that I see right now with the squad, in addition to some of the things, is there's very little athleticism on the floor. Unless Hudson's in the game. Hudson's really the only guy right now that can really go by somebody and get to the basket and make a play. The finish he had late, there's nobody else on the team that I think can do that. And so if you can find more ways to get Hudson on the floor, I think it certainly would help. And I think when Conan's in the game, it sort of mitigates some of that because he is an athlete. He does protect the rim a little bit more than Owen. In fact, I think our defense is better with Kerem. I don't have any numbers to back that up, but I just from the eye test, I think our defense is probably better when Kerem's in the game. He can do more. He can switch more if they wanted to go that route. He'd be a better guy in hard hedges because his feet are a little bit better. He can move laterally better than Owen can, especially come back from an injury. So I don't know if that answers your question fully, Jacob, but Owen had some moments where he looked good, but as a whole, it's just not where he needs to be in order for this team to reach the potential that it might have. We have somebody else saying, an Iowa State fan who watched Freeman at Iowa, doesn't look the same after the injury, always been a defensive liability. Yeah, I mean, hard to argue with that. He definitely doesn't look the same. I think the unfortunate thing for Creighton fans is we saw him a couple of years ago, hit a bunch of mid-range jumpers and whatnot. And I remember being there, and the fans were kind of, groaning and moaning in the stands. And I was laughing on the bench because this is what we want to do. I always have to remind people Creighton won that game. So it's okay if guys are hitting some mid-range jumpers to an extent, right? You can't let them kill you from there, but to an extent. But defensively, agreed. Defense is not his strong suit. I thought that playing in drop coverage would help him, but what I'm seeing is he's hesitant to make decisions defensively, and it really puts a lot of pressure on the big because the big has to communicate. And again, that's not his strong suit. So he's getting put in a position where, one, he's having to communicate those ball screens. Two, he's in drop, which isn't his natural way of playing ball screens. And then the thing when you're playing drop is if the big gets by you, that's when you have to make a decision, right? And then you and the guard have to have repped it out. Mac has talked about it. We've actually had, I think, Coach Blue on here talking about veering, and the principle around veering is the guard would essentially late switch onto the big. I don't want to get too technical, but a lot of that takes time. It takes reps, but it also takes it's a timing thing. And you have to make split-second decisions on when you're going to commit to the guard or when you're going to drop back off onto the big. That was what Ryan Carpenter, among 1,000 things, that's one of the things he was so good at, is he could time that stuff so well, but he also had extreme length. So even if he was a half a second late, he could still get there in time to affect the shot or get his hand on the ball to tip it out. So look, Owen is not Ryan Carpenter, and it's unfortunate for him. You never want to be the guy that follows the guy. That's what it is. I don't feel bad for him, but it is a tough position to be in. Can he find his way? I don't know. I really hope so, because if you talk to anybody on that staff, they rave about him. They say what a good dude he is, good teammate, all those things. He's shown nothing but being a guy that you want to be around, but he's feeling some pressure. And I do hope that his teammates kind of put their arm around him and say, hey man, it's going to be, we're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. The good thing is he's playing for a guy that will invest into him and will take the time and teach and coach. He's not going to give up on him, but at some point, the minutes, you're already kind of seeing it. The minutes are going to go down and down. And Mac's going to have to play guys that he knows can get it done. So we're going to see. Another question here. Blake, with a couple rough games, are you worried they're against big opponents? It's a good question. I'm still going to say no. I was pretty honest, in my talking about Blake earlier in the year, that I think he's a year away. I never thought that Blake Harper was going to come in here this year and be a guy that you could count on for, 12, 13 points a night. I didn't think that was ever going to be the case. If you listened, I was really lucky. I had a good opportunity to interview Blake earlier this year. Outstanding young man. First of all, it sounds cheesy when I say young man, but he's just an outstanding dude. Love talking to him. I've got a chance to be around him a little bit out of practice. And I mean, just what a cool personality that he has. And I just love that he's on the team. But when you come play in this system, it just takes time to learn. And in addition to that, his body's really transformed, but it's not there yet. And I know Jeremy's still working with him on some things athletically. But in addition to that, if you look at his game, go back and watch his tape at Howard and a little bit of his high school tape. He was so good at taking advantage of having a physical mismatch and being able to play at different speeds, but never really fast, right? He could back you down in the post a little bit. He could hit jumpers. I think he's going into this game, he was leading us in 3-point shooting. I think he was shooting 50% on the year. So like he can hit the perimeter jump shot when given time and space. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you really want, dribbling into a shot and trying to create it that way. So I think he's a year away from kind of really learning how to play with his body, because again, he lost a ton of weight, and that does take time to kind of figure out, okay, now I'm a little bit slimmer. I'm getting more athletic. What can I do with this frame? Because he's long and he does have, I think, some underlying athleticism that's going to showcase as he continues to play in the system and continues to get into the gym, get into the weight room with Jeremy. Jeremy will work wonders for him. But I do think he's a year away from because I saw some people talking about him potential like NBA. I hate to say no. I mean, I want it for him. If he can get into the NBA, great. But I don't think it's going to happen this year. I just don't. So I guess all that to say, no, I'm not worried. I'm not worried because I think he's going to find it. I just think right now you've still got a bunch of guys that are trying to figure out how to play together. And on top of that, they're still learning Mac's system. If you look at some of the sets we're running, we're not running a bunch of advanced, things right now. And I know that's some of me just being there and knowing some of our offense, but Mac is not putting a ton on these guys right now because he's wanting them to really learn. If you think back to previous years that you've watched this team, think about how many times we saw the ball pop around the perimeter, right? And it always would tend to lead to a wide open three or a breakdown defense with which you could drive your man and finish at the rim. That's the staple of Creighton's offense, is to move the ball and to run our offense with timing. And we talked to Mitch yesterday about this. That's what we have to get to. And until, it can't be a bunch of individual guys with the basketball in their hand trying to break down their defender and score on a jump shot at the end of the shot clock. You're never going to be good that way. And that's what Mac has to really, continue to just beat that home to these guys. I guarantee you they're showing them film on the teams from previous years, what made them good versus looking at these teams now that are, again, I'd love to see a stat of how many times we're shooting the ball late in the shot clock off 15 dribbles. I mean, it's really hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. It was actually the first thing Baylor said when I talked to him after the game was, how many times do we get stuck late in shot clock and just had to force a shot? And it's just really hard to be good offensively like that. You've just got to have, unbelievable one-on-one basketball players. And as much as I love our guys, Carmelo Anthony isn't going to be, walking into the locker room anytime soon, and being able to be that guy that late in shot clock could just go get his bucket. So, I'm not worried about that per se, but I am going to get worried if I don't see an increase of buy-in of how we can be good offensively. And that to me is certainly the rebounding is an issue. But our turnovers led to tonight, it led to, 19 points for Iowa State. Again, you're probably never going to be a 0 turnover team, but if you can cut that even just in half, this is a 9-point game. And I'm not great at math, so that could be wrong, but I believe it'd be a 9-point game. Right. So, that to me is the stuff that I would look at right now is how do we continue what we did today on the boards? We had a better performance on the boards. And I say that knowing that we had to play small a little bit too. So how do we do that? Cut down on our turnovers and start sharing the ball better. We gotta be able to make plays for other people. When you're only, Trey said it, when you're playing for the name on the back of your jersey, it's a recipe for disaster. You've got to play for the name on the front of your jersey, play for the team, have the mentality of, I'm going to drive, I'm going to try to make a play for my teammate. When we start to get more of that into our offense and into our game, this team will start to play better. Here's the thing. I'm always going to try to be the positive guy. I couldn't believe in Mac more than I do, and in that staff more than I do. They will continue to work and figure it out. At the end of the day, though, the players still have to go out and perform and take what they're hearing and learning onto the court. And we'll see if they can do it. I'm not giving up hope. I don't think it's realistic right now to look at this team and say we're the third best team in the league anymore. I think that's just it's just not what it is. But I think we have to kind of change our mentality of what we're looking for. Now the team has to just be looking for growth. Be looking for, are we getting better at certain things? And if we're not seeing improvement in things like turnovers, in things like points in the paint, I mean, we gave up 52 points in the paint. That's a little misleading because a lot of those were off turnovers and layups. So you have to remember that as well. And you're playing small, but it's still a problem. You got to guard the basketball. You got to keep the ball out of the paint. And when it gets in the paint, what do? Remember now, we never had to double. We never had to help with the big pal in the game. He could guard, for the most part, post one-on-one. We're not going to really be able to do it. And you saw a little bit today. You saw a little bit of extra help, and we got burned. I think it was Ty. Ty was really heavy in the gaps, trying to prevent the ball from getting to the post. They kicked the ball to the corner. They hit an open 3 in the corner. It's sometimes you got to tip your cap and say, hey, you know what? You hit a good shot. But there are things that we have to get fixed. And to me right now, for me, it's taking care of the basketball, and limiting your opponents to one shot. If we can do those things, we'll slowly start to turn this thing around. So thanks for everybody who watched. I'm going to play our commercials and play us out, but we always appreciate the support. If you haven't subscribed to the Big East Energy Network, please do it. We're working hard to provide the best Big East content, only Big East content to the fans. We have a show for every single Big East team except for Marquette and Providence, and we're hoping to fill those two, here soon and have the entire thing kind of worked out. We've got over 20,000 subscribers, so we appreciate all the support. But if you can like, share, subscribe to our stuff, it really does help us keep this thing going and allows us to do things like having coaches on our post-game show and eventually have some players and things like that on our post-game show. So it means a lot. So please help us out there. But listen, happy Thanksgiving to everybody here. Happy birthday, Coach Mac. We love you. We believe in you. We're going to get this thing turned around, but I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving and has an opportunity to spend some time with people that you love and really soak in, what this season's about and what you're thankful for. So as for me, Casey, Jimmy, the whole crew of Big East Energy, we're thankful for you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. And we will see you, Thursday.
Why you need to try Pepper Jack's Grill, the best Philly cheesesteak in America. At Pepper Jack's Grill, we craft your Philly just the way you like it. Fresh ingredients, sizzling on the grill, and endless customization options. Not just Phillies, we've got rice bowls, burritos, nachos, and even vegetarian choices. And don't forget those crispy fries with our famous spicy ranch. With 10 great locations in Omaha, there's a delicious meal waiting for everyone in the family. Pepper Jack's Grill, your Philly, your way.
At Pyramid Contractors, we do it all. From repairing or replacing your roof to updating siding, windows, or gutters. When you have a home improvement project, call Pyramid Contractors.
Pyramid.